But it definitely came to points where like I'd be out with my dad telling him stop, like what the hell are you doing? Like just leave. And, but it wasn't just him, to be fair. And I came to realize that now. And there's two sides to every coin. I think everyone has a fault when it comes to everything in life. And, at the time, it's crazy. I am only like 16 and I'm being involved while also trying to play sports and do all this stuff. I mean, it's crazy that you just go through this turmoil. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Cameron Hodge Show. I am your host, Cameron Hodge. And in today's show, I wanted to I just wanted to address something that's in like my past. And while, I think we all have our own challenges growing up, and some are way worse than others. I know by far I am not the hardest life growing up by any means stretch of the imagination. I'm still blessed to be able to be born in a country where you can still be whatever you want to be, despite the craziness going on in the world today. But obviously, we all have our struggles. And I just wanted to talk about how some of the things I went through growing up, how I dealt with them, and kind of my experience of making that transition, and how in the end, it's not only made me a better business owner, but a better father, husband in that process. But it took me a long, long time to get from that point to where I am today. So, growing up, I was definitely a middle-class life in a small town in upstate New York. Not like it was a tough life at all. For the most part of my life, I'm very blessed. I had two parents who both worked, and I realize that now, marriage is hard. Being single is hard in its own right. And, being a husband, a wife, like it's hard. And I come to realize that over time, you kind of gotta keep putting in effort. And what I started to notice, obviously growing up, I was very lucky. Financially never wanted for anything, right? I was blessed that my parents didn't like have any hard drugs in the home and things like that. Other than my dad, having to step out for a little bit for a couple years at a time with promotions. He was working for the corrections facility, and they'd have to go to a different prison and work there, and he would be away from home for a little bit of time during those years. Overall, didn't have much complaints, right? Small family, didn't have much extended family, but, it was just me, my sister, my dad, my mom. Well, it's crazy in life how things can just change over time, right? And for our family, it came to a point where, and I was still young enough to probably not know what really caused it. But, like many marriages, things I think slowly just start to decay. And if you don't continue to put in that effort and make that commitment to what you really should be lifelong, things just start to fall apart. And I think a mix, I got to be, a child in a home that things just started, it seems like, as I hit middle school and these years continued to go on past that point when I was still living at home, things just started to degrade. And maybe in small parts at a time, little fighting here, arguments here. And you don't really think anything of it until all of a sudden when you wake up and you're just caught in the midst of this craziness, right? Especially a lot of people, most stories, growing up is I would hear, as a teenager at that time, you hear stories of, people going through way harder shit. It's just straight up, they go through way harder stuff, whether it's coming from a third world country, not even having a place, escaping communism, all this stuff. So even at the time you think I'm going through nothing, this is nothing, right? Because obviously when you start to experience problems in the home, especially by that time the internet had started to come out. I was born in the 90s before we really had dial-up internet, and then I got to see the progression from dial-up and that progression in the home. So I had the resources to start looking into stuff. We start seeing, not to the level it is today by any means, but you start to see a level of people going through way harder things. Dude, there's no way this can't be that bad. I just need to get over it. Especially being a teenage boy, you're I gotta get over this. I need to figure this out. But you start to be in a home and start being fighting. I mean, I still remember growing up, it got to the point where, I didn't really think of it in the beginning, but you start to see every night, massive fights between my parents. And sometimes they go to 3 a.m, and which is just fucking crazy. You know what I mean? And to be not only what's crazy is how initially those things can affect you, right? And what's crazy is at the time I'd be man, I'm always tired of school, trying to sleep. And it's but in reality, as an adult now, I look back and it's we had no shit. Your parents were fighting till 3 a.m. every goddamn night. And this wasn't forever, right? This is just when unfortunately for my sister, it was a little bit longer for sure, but it's really only in the beginning that it hit that period of time heading into high school where about eighth grade onward that things just really started to degrade. And, being in that home with that fighting, it's crazy because you lay there and you're just like, man, I just want to stop. I just want to like, shut up, go to bed. Like, I'm tired of this. And, what's even crazy is like, you're in this situation, you're stuck with that fighting and things like that. But you don't like, I never realized that there was a place to go. I think like when I hear a lot of stories where people are in, like less fortunate situations financially and stuff like that, they're like, I just left home, or I just did like, I think being stuck in like that middle class situation, you're like, dude, what the hell? Like, this is, I thought other people went through this. Like, why am I going through this? And, what's crazy is, I was never like the most popular kid in school. Like, I definitely didn't have many enemies, but maybe in the beginning years had some bullying, sandwiches and hoodies and like, like hitting and shoving and like name calling students, like nothing crazy. But what's crazy is like how, as a man, I think it's good to go through stress. I've come to realize that now. And what's crazy is you go through that at school to just come home. And like, I knew my parents loved me. Like, there was never a question that like they didn't have a love for me, but man, it came really, really quick to where it fell apart. I mean, imagine every night you come home and like, I knew like it was gonna be fighting. And I tried to use video games as an escape. Like, I would be the one that would throw, controllers at walls and just get super upset, like over a stupid game. Right. But it was like that emotional outreach. And like, I didn't know how, like, not only as like a teenage man, he had all these freaking emotions. And like, especially at that time, society was really starting to ramp up where, like being a regular man was not a good thing. It was like some bad thing. Right. Not as bad as it is today, but it started to build that momentum and build that pressure. And, being in that household where, I mean, I still remember taking family trips and my dad would just like drive off angrily or, just be frustrating. And, in the beginning, it just seemed like them fighting between each other. I mean, I eventually hit the point where, you hear shoving back and forth. There eventually also came to a through-in, especially after 16, to where like I was fighting with my dad and got into like massive arguments. Thankfully, it never came to blows. But it definitely came to points where like I'd be out at my dad telling him to stop, like what the hell are you doing? Like, just leave. And but it wasn't just him, to be fair. And I came to realize that now. And there's two sides to every coin. Now I think everyone has a fault when it comes to everything in life. And at the time, it's crazy. Like I'm only like 16 and I'm being involved in this crap while also trying to play sports and do all this stuff. I mean, it's crazy that you just go through this turmoil. And like I said, like financially never wanted, but at the time, like it sucked. Like it fucking blew. I never thought it would end. I felt like my 18th birthday could not come fast enough, when in reality, I probably could have left sooner if I really wanted to make that push. But like I said, it was one of those things to where, I'm like, where the hell am I going to go? Like I knew that, like I was old enough at that point. I'm like, all right, it's not much longer, but it was a long couple fucking years, like without a doubt. And to be in that situation just sucked. And what's crazy is as years went on, I started to find out like the arguments. Now, I'm sure like my parents probably have a different perspective of what's going on at the time. This is just from my perspective. But I come to find out, my mom was drinking heavily. I mean, eventually hit a point to where she would eventually get 2 DUIs with my sister in the car. That would eventually lead to her having to go to prison for a period of time. County jail, nothing past that. But, that is like a felony in New York State at the time. So she would have to go through that. I remember finding alcohol in the house. They found alcohol in her classroom at the school. And I start to realize, and by the way, this is like in the last 2 years of my high school years. Well, I think it was towards the final year that they really decided to move out from the home. But all that started to come to the headwinds, and I'm like, it's just crazy, especially for my sister who, we all have regrets in life. And I think one of the regrets I have during this period of time is that I wasn't there for her more. I was so caught up in trying to deal with my own shit that I should have been there a lot more for her, especially like I think I don't know what it's like being a woman, but I know, with my wife now and getting better perspective on it and talking through things, that for her, it was probably a lot worse, because as a man, I think some adversity is a good thing, and what's crazy is how I, during that time, like, I mean, imagine like, like your mom is supposed to be something sacred. And while I never argued her love and caring for me, it's different. People become different with alcohol, and seeing someone that you care about going through both of those. I mean, I still remember one night, like the fighting getting so bad, the cops are called. I don't know who called them. I don't know if my parents did, or I don't know what happened, but the fighting was insane. And, here we are, like, again, like midnight, early hours of the fucking morning. And, obviously in New York State, someone has to leave. My dad has nowhere to go. Like, he doesn't have any family. So my mom had to go with my grandmother's, and they tested her alcohol limit. And it was like, oh my God. Like it was to the point where even the cop was like, you want to go to the hospital? Because that's how much she had in her system. Because it was dangerous levels. And, it's insane to, especially as I think it was 17 at the time, to be able to be stuck there having to witness that. And you're like, dude, what the fuck am I going through right now? And, what's crazy is after that night, you go back to like these school and these institutions where, I remember getting pulled into the office being like, oh, like I remember like principal being like, oh, I know what you're going through. I'm like, I don't give a shit. I'm like, you don't. I'm like, at that time I was probably definitely more of like a strung up teenager, just with some attitude, but like I was just so fucking tired of it. I still had longer hair at the time as well. And, I was just so fucking done. It was my senior year of school, and I'm like, I cannot wait to leave this shithole town. Like I was done. I was so done with it, and I was just completely over like all the crap that had been going on for years. I mean, years and years of just fighting. I used to be like, oh, my mom would fall asleep on the couch a lot. No, it's because she'd pass out drunk. And what's crazy is some people get upset with how blunt I am about it, but it's just, it's the facts. The facts are the facts. And, for the longest time, I definitely fell into this victim mindset. It's because of that, I just can't figure things out, or, can't have a good relationship, or just hating on myself. Like somehow I was involved, or like my fault. And, it just sucked. But I can tell you that if you find yourself in the same situation, a lot of times it might not be immediate, but looking back and kind of getting the best of the situation. I mean, that situation propelled me to, I signed up for college after my senior year of high school, community college. My dad even spent the money for the tuition, a couple grand. And I remember sitting there and I'm like, yeah, I can't do this. And I'm like, the military was always something that was on my mind, always a consideration. But after like those are the events in the past couple years, I can tell you that I hit a point where I was just like, yeah, I'm done. I need an out. And I can tell you, like, I don't want to go to college. I mean, I looked at like the financial burden, and we'll get to like why I had that mindset to begin with in a little bit. But I hit a point where I was just like, no, fuck this. I'm like, I need to get it out. And, a little bit later, I find myself, signing up for the Marine Corps. I was like, all right, I'm out. About a year later, it took me about a year to get from that point. Had to get a waiver for some stupid thing that happened in childhood and all this dumb stuff. But ultimately, like, I was like, yeah, I'm out. And I remember when I told my dad that I was signing up for the Marine Corps, I don't think he talked to me for almost a week. And I don't know if he remembers. We've talked about it now at that point. But at the time, my mom was, I think she was still in, I don't know if she was in jail yet. She might have been in a halfway house or whatever they want to call that. But yeah, like he didn't talk to me for a week, and even at the end of that week, he tried setting me up with an officer army recruiter. And I'm like, Dad, I don't want to fucking do that. Like, I've done my interviewing. I've done my research. I don't want to do that. I'm signing up to work on some kind of aircraft doing something in the Marine Corps, and that's what I want to do. And he accepted it, but I could tell it didn't sit well with him. And he had served in the Army too. It's just, I think watching your son go do something like that it's not the easiest thing. And I know he probably blamed himself a lot for it, especially when you're going through a nasty divorce. Even in New York State, with my mom having 2 DUIs and things like that, I mean, she still massively got a lot from that divorce. And a lot of people are gonna be like, well, she had emotional. Sure. Like I'm talking about physical things and financial stuff. Like in the end, my dad was never a great person with money to begin with, but I definitely saw him become like, it's weird to see, like, he just, you see a man who's supposed to be strong and like the father figure, like the man in the house, and it just crumble. Mind you, he had a lot of his own feelings that were definitely brought on by his own actions. So don't think it's only one-sided. Like I said, every coin has two sides. So, joining the Marine Corps, I found out very quick, especially in the military, those who have been in, I can understand, that you start to realize real quick, you're like, wow, my thing was nothing. We all have problems. I'm like, God, everyone that's here right now has some kind of problem they're running from. Like, there's probably a very, very small percentage of the military that's like, I'm joining for service or whatever. A lot of us are running from something: financial debt, emotional craziness in the home, homelessness. Like, there's something we're running from to where we sign up. Hey, dude, it's a free fucking ticket. It got me out of my hometown, and I have not looked back since. It was the best decision I ever did with my life. And what's funny is, like, I look back now, and that was the first moment in my life where I fucking took ownership for my life. I'm like 18, and my dad wanted me to go criminal justice degree, go be like detective or something. I didn't want to do any of that. I'm like, there is no way I'm like, I am meant for more than just living in this small shithole town, just being a detective. Even like that area in New York I grew up in, which is in Western New York in upstate. But so, yeah, that was the best decision I ever did. And, even after being in the military, for the longest time, I just avoided feelings. Obviously, as a man, you gotta pick up and fucking go, right? Especially in the Marine Corps, you just go, go, go. And, what's crazy is, obviously, though, I think many who join the military know, like, you join the military, you see family members pass away, you grandparents, like, they're not there anymore. And by the time I ended my 5-year enlistment, I'm like, yeah, they're gone. Friends moved on, people are different, and you're not home that much. Even when you get home, like, most people don't see you, and it's just a fact. And I came to realize that, it is what it is. But when you got to the end of that enlistment, I'll tell you this much. So if you're still active duty and you're listening to this, when you get out of the military, like, it just fucking hits you like a brick. Any emotions or shit you were dealing with hit you really quick. And not only you leave the military, and I'll have another episode where I'll probably deep dive into like my military experience and things like that. But, I realized real quick, I'm like, fuck, I started also, like, my marriage definitely, struggled. And I was, I didn't even take any responsibility for the shit that was going on in my marriage. I was doing the same shit my parents were doing to an extent. And, it took several years after being out to really where I am now, to where I got to reflect and sit down and being like, all right, what the hell is going on? And what I've come to realize is I'm actually really grateful for what went on inside that home. Like the nights of not sleeping, like the fighting, the shoving, the alcohol, all of it. As a man, I think, I would never wish that upon my daughters or my sons. Obviously I don't have any daughters. I have 3 sons right now, and I would never wish that on them. But as a man, I'm actually very thankful I went through that adversity and that struggle, even if it, not the most extent by any means. But, because seeing that do that, I knew very early on, I'm like, dude, there's no way I can rely on my parents for anything after this. Like, I got to figure it out. And, it starts small. I mean, look where I am in business today, growing and learning, and the people I've met. It's literally because of all that shit I went through. It taught me very quick. I'm like, I need my own account. I need to pay my own bills. I would always work. I'd play football and I'd still work, I'd play sports and I'm still working. I'd take my entire summers. We're working 4 a.m. to 6 a.m., getting up, working at the golf course until about noon to 3. And I'd work at gas stations, did everything. Me and the buddies, we used to go to the flea markets. We just buy stuff and flip it at the flea markets, try and turn a profit. Back when the McDonald's burritos were cheap as dirt and you can load them up, and we just go and chill all day. Just hustling, trying to make some extra money, and like awesome things like that. And that drive, like, and what's funny is, like, you look back, and like one of the best friends I have from being in school during that time, still like the only really good friend I have today, had his own adversity he went through with growing up. And I look back, and when we would go to the flea market and stuff like that, we were really the only ones that probably took it the most serious. And it's awesome. And I think what we went through in our own lives is what really pushed us, because the rest didn't really have that crazy of probably the home life to a point. Some did, and they probably just didn't care about it. But, we were able to channel what we went through and use that as fuel, power. And I, like, even to this day, like, right now, like, I used to have a couple drinks a year, and like, I won't, it's not like I don't say I'll never drink again, but I'll tell you, like, it will be like maybe 1 or 2 drinks a year, tops. I don't enjoy drinking. I am happy to be raising my boys in a home that doesn't really consume alcohol. If I use it, it's for cooking, right? For using wine and stuff like that. Or my wife uses it for cooking. And I am forever thankful. A lot of people, they have alcoholic parents and they try and probably play the victim game a little bit. Not me. I'm thankful. I'm forever thankful that I got to experience what that can do to a household. And what's funny is I ended up marrying someone who, her dad went through the same thing, alcoholic as well. And a lot of people tell you, what's funny is in life is I realize there's certain truth to statistics, right? Like, hey, your parents are an alcoholic, you can become an alcoholic. I'll tell you this, I don't give a shit. I don't care what anyone says. I was like, you know what? You know what matters? My opinion matters. How I think of myself matters. And I found out real quick, the more, especially when I had kids, I'm starting to run businesses, and I'm like, I cannot waste time drinking. I cannot have a hungover day. I can't have it, can't afford it. I just can't afford that stress to be thrust upon me. And I'm like, you know what? I'm like, I am forever thankful that I don't drink. And people offer me, and I'm like, no, I'm good, dude. I'm like, sure, I have a caffeine addiction. I love me some coffee. Sure. Occasional energy drink. Hey, we all have our vices for sure. But I can tell you that I've come a long way. A lot of things I try to use as crutches. Never really food. Definitely had a porn addiction for a while. I'm happy. I can happy admit that now because I'm like, dude, get over it, man. It's crazy. During the time in the military, I was just running away from stuff. And it's since I'm lucky enough to find my wife, and she's helped work through a lot of things. What's funny is I think she gets more, sometimes she can be, more protective of me with my past, with things, for my emotional protection. But to be honest with you, I think that's what you look for in the other half, as a man. And I love her for it, but she still helped me work through a lot of things. And what's crazy is to be able to look back and be thankful that all of that happened is something I will forever be grateful for. I have many things I need to work on. I'm not a perfect person, but if you were going through adversity in your past, I hope this story kind of just enlightens you. It's look, we all go through varying levels, some worse than others. But if you're a man watching this, I implore you to kind of see what was the benefit of that. And, I can't speak what it's like from the mind of a woman. I can tell you as a man, I think it was great that I had that stress in my life. And then I continued that stress going through the Marine Corps, because in this day, it's built a discipline, it's built a drive, it has built a desire to just make a decision and go for it. Because I understand, I see how quickly life it can go from something that seems so great to just fall apart and become something so terrible, or just start to go down that slippery slope. All it takes is hey, we're going to party every Friday, and then all of a sudden it becomes, oh, I need a beer to relax after work, or hey, I need to smoke a bowl to do this. And it's just you become lazy, you become complacent, you become a destroyed person, and there's more to life than just those things. I'm not saying you can't enjoy them. I am full in a free freaking country. I think you should have the right to do it. But at the same time, you need to understand and be real with yourself. Is that starting to destroy you? Is that starting to just, eat at you? And is it starting to take away time? I mean, I'll tell you, if I smoke some weed, if I consume alcohol, all of a sudden I'm I don't have a desire to get that thing I told I'd give to my client. I didn't think I don't feel like doing this right now. I just become lazy. I become complacent, and I just become a person who I don't think my sons will be proud to look up to. And what's exciting is the day that, they get to look back at this. This podcast on YouTube, will forever be there for them to watch and listen. And I am forever grateful that this stuff exists, because now they get to look back and I get to share with them my experiences that I went through, but they're going to have to go through their own struggles. Having 3 sons, I am not admit to the fact that they can't be coddled. They have to figure it out, and they have to go through their own trials and tribulations, because to be a man, I do think you have to go through stuff. You have to have that sharpened steel, because you can't just be, going through life, always getting handed what you want. It's just not going to happen. So, I hope if you're going through something, realize you're not alone, dude. You're not alone. There's always bad things in life, but the greatest thing is being able to take those and turn them into something great. And even if you're going through something, I implore you to be able to look back and find a good way about it. I still remember visiting my mom in prison, going through all that, and I am grateful for every single minute of it, because it reminds me of what could happen if I get lazy and I don't start taking care of my responsibilities as a man and a provider for my household. So I hope you got value in this show, in this episode today. You can always reach out to me. I am Cameron P. Hodge on Instagram. You can find me on LinkedIn, Cameron Paul Hodge. Also, I will be having a website up shortly to help everyone connect with me. If you're watching this on YouTube, like and subscribe. Always happy to spread the show, share it around. Like this, I will never speak anything on this show that I have not experienced myself. Like, I think it's obnoxious when today, nowadays, like even only being 29, like people just want to share and they want to be something that they have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. And I will only ever share my personal experiences. I continue to have guests lined up right now that I'm going to be bringing on, people that I'm like, wow, this person is just, they're grounded and I think they have something great to share. And I'll continue to have podcasts, but I'll also be doing these solo shows because sometimes I just want to get my word out there. I want this to be recording for my sons and for people who are going through the same things to understand what's going on. And if you're on the podcast, go ahead and comment, leave a review. Like, I'm always looking for feedback to how to improve the show. You know, hey, if you're going through this as well, you can always reach out, at info@hodgehometeam.com. Right now, that's the most active email for you to get a hold of me. You can just reach out. Always happy to talk about it. If you're looking to connect, I have many things going on in my life. I'm always happy to help you through the journey, just like I'm on this journey as well. So look forward to seeing you guys in the next one.